The reason why it's so difficult is because the system is so critical to your operation. Like it's literally the core of the tech stack and it's continuously kind of expanding and it's fluid in what it is. So therefore, if you do have a problem with it or there is a huge opportunity, it's usually quite big for you.
Hello, we're Global App Testing, and this is Building Globally, Lessons in Enterprise Product Growth. This is the fastest growing, most exciting podcast in product, and we will be looking at every single angle on how you can grow your enterprise product by talking to professionals in some extremely exciting businesses. On with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Building Globally podcast. I'm your host, Adam, and today we're taking an industry deep dive looking into the success of MEWS, that's MEWS. MEWS is a property management system, or PMS, and it enables your hospitality business to do all sorts of things, from managing your rooms and their booking right down to your payment processing. We are joined by their Chief Product and Technology Officer, Josef, today. Hi, Josef. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for being here.
First, just before we kind of dive into it, we're going to sort of talk a little bit about some of the market dynamics of hospitality. But I would love for you to just start by telling us about MEWS. What is MEWS?
Yeah, sure. So as you already highlighted, MEWS is a traditional what it's known as a property management system. That means that if you start a hotel, you have a hotel, you need to have a system that you put, your data in and that you manage your data in and manage your core workflows. And that's what property management systems traditionally are. They are sort of the core brain of the hotel. So you need a property management system. It's like there is very, very, very few hotels in the world that operate without a property management system. Basically, all hotels have at least one property management system.
It'd be a very sort of traditional, like a huge book on the front desk would be
That's the alternative. However, the book on the front desk, doesn't connect to, things like booking.com, etc., to kind of synchronize your reservations and do also better stuff. But it really is a sort of, hospitality platform. It's not just one software. It's multiple softwares that work very tightly together. Everything from, the sort of guest side of things, with MEWS, we also offer guest-facing solutions where you can, do online check-in, online check-out. You can message the property. You can cancel your reservation. You can kind of self-serve yourself. You have a booking engine and a kiosk to do that as well. Then obviously kind of the core B2B side would be the PMS as such, but not just kind of managing rooms, but anything. We also help manage parking lots and bikes and event spaces and, manage events and all sorts of like workflows within the property that are quite complex. Also rate management and revenue management, like how do you set up your prices and propagate your prices? How do you connect through distribution with the likes of booking.coms and other sort of OTAs? But we also have a POS for restaurants, the traditional POS that integrates very tightly with the PMS. And then we are also a fintech company to a huge extent. So payments is a huge value proposition that we offer, and we sort of offer this Uber-like experience in hospitality where you don't even know when you kind of paid, but it somehow happens.
As you say, you need a property management system. Every hotel is likely at this stage today in 2024 to have a property management system. And so it's a red ocean, right? And MEWS has seen a huge amount of success. You have taken over from lots of other property management systems. Why? To what do you ascribe your success?
As always, with any such thing, there is a lot of, there is a lot of smaller things and bigger things, and sort of the combination of them results in the growth. One major, if you look at kind of the industry, one major change within the industry is that hospitality is overall quite late to the game of migrating to cloud, and hospitality is only migrating to cloud kind of right now, and the wave is happening right now, and therefore most customers are forced or want to move to cloud, and we are just one of several cloud solutions, and you could say that kind of all cloud solutions are somewhat new. Even the likes of Oracle, which Oracle is kind of the most well-known solution in this space, even they had to develop a new sort of cloud version themselves and migrating customers. So, the kind of change in the industry, that tailwind obviously helps a lot. But I think what really differentiates MEWS as well is the kind of approach we have, which is much more business oriented. We don't focus on, as I say, what it is, but what it does to your business. How do we help our customers and kind of being outcome specific for the hotel. A lot of solutions just kind of check the boxes. Do you have this? Do you have that? And and checking as many boxes as possible is the kind of desired outcome. Whereas for MEWS, we really kind of try to make sure that we improve the guest satisfaction for our hotels. We increase their revenue. We reduce the time on manual tasks and really kind of drive those outcomes and talk about them primarily. And then there is I could go into a lot of sort of other corners from culture. I think we have a very sort of culture of like caring about the customer and caring about the end result, but then also to the business model as such. But payments and fintech is something that kind of enabled kind of like a flywheel, internal flywheel into kind of reinvesting more into the product because of payments, etc. Ending with like consolidating the market as such.
So there's obviously lots of stuff there. I'd love to come back to what you said about. You said that hospitality businesses are still only just getting around to updating to cloud-based software, and the kind of old-fashioned software is still on-prem. I wonder if you could just sort of spell out for us. We think of hospitality in general as a laggard, as a slow adopter for digital products. How does that kind of fact translate into MEWS's strategy of growth and theory of customers? How did that affect the way that you approached hospitality?
That is indeed something that is extremely visible and talked about in the industry quite a lot. That technology is not a first class citizen in hospitality. And it's not being thought of as a solution to business problems. It's a budget that you somehow fill with technology because you need technology, but there is still not enough kind of acumen for using technology to improve the business. So obviously that is slowly transforming. As with anything, these sort of things take time and will take a long time. I guess the primary way I think I would come back to talking about the outcomes. So when I was on stage on one of our biggest customer event that we call Unfold. So that's where annual event where we get kind of 1,000 customers live, and we sort of talk about the industry, etc. I use the analogy of when you look at phone cameras. Like previously, we looked at phone cameras as like how many megapixels does a phone camera has. Today, no one talks about megapixels. It's not interesting anymore. We talk about look at this nice photo that you can do when it's dark and things like that. And we have to make that shift in technology. And therefore, like, today we again just look at like what it is, like, does it have this feature? But like, talking about outcome, what is the outcome of hospitality technology? And we have these 5 pillars internally that we are kind of aligning ourselves around, which is guest experience, guest lifetime value, revenue per space, employee productivity measures as like revenue per employee and time on tasks that you kind of spend on. And we try to really kind of zone in on those and talk about these outcomes and show that technology can be. And that just takes a lot of conversation with customers really, and kind of helping them on the journey and kind of going on the journey with them as well.
So that's kind of part of how you frame the opportunity associated with the slow adoption market. Could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you'd associate with it? What have been some of the things you found difficult about the hospitality industry, either related to that or the physicality of the work? What have been some of the things that you've had trouble trying to figure out in product land at MEWS?
First of all, as you say, it's quite a physical world that you interact with, and it's quite there is a lot of stakeholders involved, right? You have the guest, you have the property, you have the employees of the property, you have the business, you have MEWS, you have OTAs, and there is just a lot of stakeholders that you need to connect together in like almost like real life interaction. Like it happens kind of real time. It's a real time business, right? Like the guest is on the property and you have to react immediately. It's not like you're sitting in your back office and you can kind of send an email tomorrow. Like the guest is standing there, needs an answer now. And, they have interacted before with booking.com, for example, or other kind of OTAs. And you sort of need to connect that all together. And that is quite challenging, especially in a ways that there is nothing like standardization in hospitality in all ways. So every hotel like is kind of different, and thinks of them differently and does something else. And the hardest thing is that when a hotel has a unique process, you have designed your product to be sort of catered towards the majority of it. But then there is this like unique process that the product doesn't adhere to. You sort of have to go through the process of not just changing the tech stack, but changing how they work altogether. And that is probably the most challenging part.
And so tell me about onboarding then as well, because I would imagine that the patience for, workflow reconfiguration that requires effort on the hospitality venues part is pretty low. And then B, you're going to be introducing processes where people who are working in a hotel or another hospitality venue are going to have to put a load of data into the system. And they're going to have to do that a lot. And not all of them are going to necessarily see why they should have to do it, right? So if I was thinking about my kind of nightmare, it would be, we're introducing a software, and our software means you have to put loads of data into the system all the time, and then it doesn't work properly. How do you do the onboarding and sort of bring people and all of those stakeholders into working through the software?
So onboarding is a very complex and a huge part of any PMS sort of. The way that people talk about changing the PMS, it's like an open heart surgery that lasts, multiple weeks, and it can be very painful. There is no easy way to, extract the data from the last system up onto the new system. The business needs to operate 24/7. So there is also not like, you cannot try that software easily and just like see if it works. Like you have to make the transition properly. So it takes a lot of, as we say, sort of data inputs, trialing, and a lot of enablement, a lot of training, understanding how these processes are. And it's a very, very intensive process. A lot of times it's on site. So we do offer like digital onboarding, but a lot of properties choose to actually upgrade to an on-site onboarding so that our people actually go on site and train these people and guide them through the process. That usually is quite extensive and hugely disruptive. And I've seen photos of when it's finished, like they buy champagnes and you have like scissors, through the kind of, the lane and things like that. So it's like a celebration. Like this was a huge effort and a huge sprint overall.
That onboarding pain has got to make the original sale that much more difficult though, right? So like how, you said that one of the things to which you ascribed your success is that it was a more outcome-based theory of product and an outcome-based theory of I guess, marketing and sales as well. But surely if what you're persuading somebody to do is have open heart surgery, I mean, I guess to persuade me to have open heart surgery, you'd need to explain that there was something seriously wrong with my heart. So I wonder how many of your venues are new venues where they have to get set up with something anyway. There must be immense challenges in terms of actually persuading property managers or operations managers that they need to actually go through with this, right?
There are two ways to look at this. The other thing is the reason why it's so difficult is because the system is so critical to your operation. Like it's literally the tech stack, the core of the tech stack, and it's continuously kind of expanding and it's quite fluid in what it is. So therefore, if you do have a problem with it, or there is a huge opportunity, it's usually quite big for you. So usually the kind of ROI on the effort is there purely because it's the thing you do. It's like the same thing, for example, when you buy a new computer, you have to like adjust to your computer to migrate all the data from your computer. But computer is so critical for you in your day-to-day work that if there is something wrong with the computer, you will change it. You will go through that kind of process of changing it. So either it's a huge pain with an existing provider. Those might be, especially if you're on the legacy provider, those might be as simple as, the system is being sunsetted, not supported anymore, or the security is bad, diminishing support, no new innovation, all sorts of things. So that's kind of what might be kind of forcing you to do so, or it's an opportunity, right? You can generate more revenue, have better guest experiences, move closer to your vision with a different solution, and that's why most hotels actually do undergo that. But the churn in this industry from such a source is extremely low. Like we have a very, very low churn because it's a very sticky software. Because as you say, the switch is not easy to do. So you don't want to do that every year. Like there are hotels that will do that every 5 years. There are hotels that I've spoken to that want to do that every 20 years, like basically kind of delay that as much as possible. But we sort of believe that with sort of the technology landscape changing, the technology becoming more and more of a business enabler, we believe that frequency will shorten because, people realize the opportunity, that something that they are missing out on because of not using technology to kind of, match the competition.
The other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to the hospitality industry is that it's a really fractured market. I mean, you listed there a laundry list of all of these different functions: booking rooms, booking bike spaces, a point of sale system, which is a sort of restaurant management system, and payment processing and other things. Can you talk me through the strategy there? I mean, you mentioned inorganic growth last time we spoke, and I presume there's a sort of acquisition thing going on there. But just talk me through your thoughts about how functionality should be grouped in a market like this, and how that fits with the MEWS strategy.
There are multiple ways to look at fragmentation. Like, first of all, the market kind of base fragmentation is very, very high. So even the, obviously it depends kind of which numbers you look at, but even kind of the latest reports that I've seen show that even the biggest players have 16% market share, and the next player has 4%, and it's 2%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. All the way to there's 1,000 PMSs in the world, and therefore there is a huge appetite for consolidation, and that's something that we kind of utilize inorganically. We do acquire some of these solutions and migrate them to the MEWS platform, and kind of take the experienced team on us with the journey. So it's a great both acqui-hire where we kind of get a very experienced team in the space to help us, and some of the best hires we have ever made come from acquisitions like these, and also you kind of get the customer base, and you give them a more modern kind of tech stack.
I used to work for a hospitality technology organization, and we were a very very simple software at that time. I mean, it's now slightly more complex, but it was very simple, and it was an integration strategy. And what they would have said there is they would say, well, the thing about buying a system that does everything is that it's a system that does nothing well. That's what they would say, and they would say, because you can't be focused on everything, and therefore you can't, as a product team, you can't keep a grip on all of the different use cases and elements in a deep way, and that ends you up with inferior quality software. Whereas integrations are great because you have separate teams that are focused on those use cases. Can you respond to that? What do you think of that argument?
So we have had and invested heavily into our open API since day one. And we have one of the biggest marketplaces in our industry with over 1,000 integrations. I think 1,200 maybe right now, maybe even more, that customers can choose from with a click of a button. They can get set up with our partners. We kind of invest in our ecosystem heavily, kind of partner ecosystem. And that's what you will see quite a lot, where you will see different segments picking up different integration providers and sort of choosing from that appetite.
Very good. Okay, so you actually do have, you would say you're offering the customer both an integration is possible, but also there's a kind of MEWS proprietary software in most of the use cases that they would be interested in pursuing. Yes,
exactly.
And in terms of the way that's you as a business think and communicate about your business strategy, am I right in thinking that they would be talking about kind of vertical integration and trying to create depth in relationship with customers through a sort of lot of different use cases throughout the whole kind of chain? Is that the way that it kind of gets talked about, or the positioning works internally, or can you give me a sort of a flavor of that?
First of all, we can focus on everything, right? So the base is that kind of whole ecosystem. Like, we want the whole industry to sort of innovate alongside us, and in different segments and different geos and different kind of use cases, that's where the marketplace shine. And just to give you a kind of, sense, an average amount of integration for a sort of bigger hotel is 10 to 20. It's not like one or two. It's like you really kind of there is like a huge kind of stack around it that you need to maintain. And a lot of times, basically, our customers benefit from those from those solutions, and will continue to do so for a very long time ahead. But obviously, there are parts where we see the connectivity, we sometimes hear from customers that connectivity of some system is so critical. It's like this analogy of like, you wouldn't buy an iPhone if it didn't have a calculator, right? Like, because you consider a calculator to be something like that needs to be there. Like, you don't want to go on App Store and choose a calculator or a phone app or a web browser. Like, you kind of expect that it's kind of there. You can then go and choose a different one, a better one for your use case. But we sort of think that, we should be providing, the core. We shouldn't be, these integrations shouldn't be patching our gaps. They should be extending our proposition or narrowing it down to a use case, but it shouldn't be fixing, a gap in our. So we're trying to constantly look at kind of what is that core to us.
How do you know when software becomes too complex? Is there a point where it should become too complex, where you're like, this is too much, or how do you think about that?
It is a very good question. I think if we had an answer to that as an industry, we wouldn't have a lot of complex software we have today. And also, like, we continue, maybe to the previous point, like we, for example, acquired a POS, and POS is part of our solution roadmap because we felt that there is an opportunity for us to do more together. But that doesn't mean we don't integrate to a lot of other great solutions that help us go, to help us on specific other use cases that we can focus on, or geos that we can't or don't want to focus on at all. And how do you know if software became too complex? That is a really good question. I'll honestly say that I probably don't have a great answer to this, as most people don't, I would guess. But definitely, and our software is becoming quite complex. And that sort of thing that people refer to quite a lot is the settings page. Like when the settings page becomes too big, like, and ours is definitely not simpler. I think there are ways in terms of, how many support tickets do you get per customer, and how hard is it to onboard the customer, and these sort of indicators can give you the sense of like that complexity usually spreads into your organizational structure, into your cost structure around the product. So that can be a good indicator, and that can serve as a good kind of load balancer as well. I think there is a difference between how complex it is and how complex is the outcome that it enables. There are ways you can always re-architect the system in a way that it enables the customers to do maybe even more, but in a way that's just like simple. And like we kind of believe that, simplicity is, when I was still a software engineer, we had a rule that I actually still refer to that I really like, which was, number one, the code needs to be simple. Number two, it needs to work. If it's not simple, it will break at one point. And it's a simple rule, but it's very hard to maintain practice. But it kind of, still there is this fundamental belief that like what is simple is right, basically. And we constantly look at ways how can we make our software simple, but obviously on the practical reality makes it very challenging a lot of times, and we have to make a lot of tough decisions.
100%. And I would imagine that in hospitality, which is it's a cash-strapped industry, it's an industry where a very high proportion of businesses fail. I would imagine that users are pretty price sensitive as well, and that there's probably a lot of pressure from really cheap, really basic solutions. I don't know whether that was just the case for us more with restaurants than it would be for you in hotels, but that's the kind of the angle that would scare me if I was in MEWS's shoes, because you have people who are gunning for market share, and don't need to make money in the short term if they've just had venture backing or something like that, and that cheap or free software appeal is very, very high. Is that am I right in terms of the sort of thing that you would think of as a big threat, or is that not something that really comes up?
Not necessarily. Like, first of all, we are one of those heavily venture-backed companies, and we are one of the more sort of premium priced versions. I think a lot of it comes to how you price and package. I think the most price sensitivity comes from like the lower SMB, market, and that kind of comes up quite often. And I think there are ways that we are looking at to, just kind of price and package more smartly so that we can offer just kind of a stripped down version for a given price. But MEWS overall, I think, caters towards more like bigger hotels, more sophisticated businesses, and those those look for sophisticated software, and they are willing to pay for that sophistication.
So, final question then: what does the future hold for MEWS?
There is a lot, but actually something that connects basically to the previous question. Something that is critical that I forgot to mention within there is ultimately, if you can prove the ROI of the package, then if the solution kind of pays for itself, and we have done independent studies with IDC that prove that to be the case, that if you adopt MEWS, like there is a positive ROI. I think that the study mentions that the ROI is repaid in kind of 7 months or something like that. But there is more and more ways we could show that to our customers. So therefore, we're sort of doubling down on PMS. Is kind of coupled a lot with hotel operations, but we sort of think about it much more holistically in terms of like kind of the guest experience, revenue, and kind of operational excellence. And what future holds for MEWS is kind of looking at this much more holistically and tying that all together, and making sure that the customers have the best experience possible. All these pillars.
One more question, actually. What does the future hold for the hospitality technology industry? Do you think that, we talked about consolidation. Do you think that it will continue to consolidate? Do you think that that won't be the case? Is there a way that do you think it'll just sort of stay the same? And that although change is something that, we need to, in order to build our new businesses and have new market entrants, people kind of sell to venture capitalists, that actually maybe there is a more stable industry than people sometimes pretend. Are there any changes that you can observe about the hospitality industry, hospitality technology industry, rather, that you think are a dead cert in the next 5-10 years?
I think I've made this comment a lot of times about just the wider SaaS industry, not just hospitality in particular, or like the overall technology industry. I think as a result of kind of the zero interest rate period, like we have received a lot of software. There's so many softwares that, you look at you and like, that's not a product, that's a feature. And I would personally question the sustainability of a feature as a service. And I think that this is something in the wider industry, like really like what customers want is a product and not like a set of features that they need to bundle together. And I think for softwares that are just features as a service, I think there is a wave of consolidation kind of happening in the wider technological market that we are now all observing, I would say.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Building Globally was brought to you by Global App Testing. To find out more about how best-in-class functional and UX testing can help your product grow, head to globalapptesting.com. If you enjoyed what you just heard, click follow on the platform you're using right now. Building Globally is available anywhere you get your podcasts.